Welcome back. All right, we got 13 games on Saturday. It's a busy day, but they're spread out throughout the day. It shouldn't be anywhere near as hectic as it is during the week. And this is the thing with Saturdays. You can have 13 games. Doesn't seem all that daunting. 13 games on a Tuesday or a Thursday. Man, that's a tough one. But at 1 o'clock Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific, we got the Columbus Blue Jackets in against Boston. On October 28th, Boston won this matchup 4-0. We'll see how it works out in this one, and then they meet. Their third and final meeting will be March the 30th. Columbus 10-17-2. It's been a rough year. They're 3-6-1 in their last 10. On the road, they have only been on the road for 10 games this year. They're 2-7-1, which means their road is they're road heavy from here. That's the term I was looking for. I found it. Eventually, they are 13 points back of the Islanders, who are the number 2 wild card in the East. They are last in the Eastern Conference, and once you're more than 10 points back, my statement on that is you're done. You don't usually see teams that are double digits behind a playoff spot at this stage of the season end up getting in. And before you say St. Louis, I don't believe they were double digits out of the playoffs, which was a statement I made a lot during the 18-19 season. So Boston, 23-4-2 overall. Their last 10 games, 6-2-2. They're coming off that shootout loss against the LA Kings, which makes them 15-0-2 at home. They're 4 points ahead of the Toronto Maple Leafs for first place. So Toronto's right in there. So if you're a Leafs fan, you're cheering for Columbus, and then you want to see your guys get that win on the road, right? So we'll see what happens. 1 o'clock in the afternoon Eastern, 10 a.m. Pacific is also the start time for Ottawa and Detroit. It's not that long ago these teams were also Rans, who were just in terrible positions, and this was just a matchup between 7th and 8th in the division. Not so much now. So this is the first of 4 meetings. They're going to get to know each other pretty darn well. They're going to meet again on December 21st or 23rd, I should say, and 31st, as well as February the 28th. So between now and the end of the calendar year, which is at the end of this month, they meet 3 times. So if Ottawa's going to get a good record going here, they're 13-14-2. They need to get some wins over the Detroit Red Wings. Over their last 10, they are 7-2-1. Very good record. They're 7 points back of the New York Islanders for that second wildcard spot. They are 1 point ahead of Philadelphia. On the Detroit side, they're 13-10-6. Their last 10 have been painful. They're 3-5-2 over that time. Their home record's 7-5-3. They're 7 points back of Tampa for third in their division. They are 3 points back of the New York Islanders for that number 2 wildcard spot. And again, you don't want to let the Islanders get too far ahead. They're going to want to win here, and then they're going to be cheering for Vegas. 4 o'clock Eastern, 1 o'clock Pacific start between the Anaheim Ducks and the Edmonton Oilers. This is the first of 4 meetings. They'll meet again January 11th, April 1st, and April the 5th. On the Anaheim side, they're 8-20-3. They're coming off that win against Montreal. They are 2-6-2 in their last 10. They're 3-13-3 away from home. They were 2-13-3, so feeling pretty good. They're 13 points back of Colorado and Calgary for that number 2 wildcard spot. They are 1 point ahead of Chicago, who are last in the West. So for Anaheim, they're ahead of Chicago right now, and they're going to look to put themselves a little further ahead. For the Oilers, they don't want that to happen. They're 17-13-1. Their last 10, they're 6-3-1. They're coming off that disappointing loss against the St. Louis Blues. They're 9-7-1 at home. They're tied with Seattle for that third spot in the Pacific. Seattle is idle tomorrow, so they can move ahead of Seattle into third. And they're 3 points ahead of Colorado and Calgary, who have the same amount of points. Colorado is occupying that second wildcard spot, but again, they have the same amount of points. 7 Eastern, 4 Pacific starts we get into with 5 games starting at that time. The Dallas Stars in against Carolina. They will have a meeting in Dallas on January 25th. This one's in Carolina. Dallas 18-8-5 over their last 10. They're 6-3-1. They've had a good road trip, even though, they lost to Pittsburgh in the final minute. I think they've played quite well in this road trip. We'll see if that continues. Away from home, they're 9-5-2. They're 2 points ahead of Winnipeg for first place in the Central. On the Carolina side, they're 17-6-6. Over their last 10, they're 7-1-2. At home, they're 6-3-1. They're tied with Pittsburgh in that chase for first in the division, and they're 3 points ahead of the New York Rangers. So we'll see how it goes for Carolina. For the New York Rangers, they're in against Philadelphia at 7 Eastern, 4 Pacific. November 1st, Ottawa, or in overtime, the Rangers win 1-0. I just see OT and I go, Ottawa. No. Overtime, Rangers win 1-0. The third and final meeting will be on March the 1st. So for the Rangers, they're 16-10-5. Their last 10, they're 6-3-1. Believe they've won 5 in a row. They got to be feeling pretty good. Away from home, they're 9-4-1. A little bit better on the road than they are at home. and they have a 2-point lead on the New York Islanders that they want to grow. On the Philadelphia side, they're 10-14-7. Their last 10, they're 3-5-2. At home, they're 6-8-1. Those numbers aren't good enough. They're 8 points back of the Islanders for that number 2 wildcard spot. They're 5 points clear of Columbus for last place in the East. So they're not last in the East, but they're only they're closer to last in the East than they are to the playoffs right now. So that's problematic if you're John Tortorella. 7 Eastern, 4 Pacific start between Tampa Bay and the Montreal Canadiens, the first of 4 meetings. They'll meet again December 28th, March 18th, and March 21st. Tampa Bay's 19-9-1, and they're rolling right now. They're 8-2 in their last 10. Away from home, they're 7-5. They're 7 points clear of Detroit for third place in that division. So we're seeing a separation between the top 3 teams in the Atlantic and everybody else as expected. And it's the 3 teams that were expected. Kind of, sort of, although I had expected Florida, not necessarily Boston, so I'll just push that to the side for now. Montreal's 14-14-2 over their last 10 games. They're 4-5-1. They're 7-8 at home, and they're coming off of an embarrassing game against the Anaheim Ducks. I wouldn't be surprised to see Montreal have a much better game. I don't know if they win it, but they should have a much better game. They're 5 points back of the New York Islanders for that number 2 wildcard spot. They are 2 points clear of the Ottawa Senators. So it's a bit of a logjam once you get to those teams that are outside the playoffs in the East. 7 Eastern, 4 Pacific start between Toronto and the Washington Capitals. This should be, or arguably could be, game of the night. Both of these teams coming off of disappointing losses, and you've got Ovechkin trying to pass Gordie Howe. You've got Marner trying to start a new point streak, and it should be fun. You've got Matthews versus Ovechkin, 2 of, if not the 2 best goal scorers in the league. There are a lot of debates to be had about that, including McDavid, including Crosby, various others, but at any rate, this should be a fun matchup. Toronto won this matchup October 13th, 3-2. The third and final meeting will be January the 29th. Toronto is 19-6-6 on the season. Their last 10 games are 8-1-1. They're coming off that loss to the Rangers. Away from home, they're 8-4-3. They are 5 points clear of Tampa Bay. So they have that number 2 spot nailed down. But if the playoffs started today, you'd get Toronto and Tampa again. The Washington Capitals 15-13-4 on the season. Their last 10 games are 6-3-1. At home, they're 8-5-1. They're 1 point behind the New York Islanders for that number 2 wildcard spot, and they're 2 points clear of Detroit. So you know the Caps were happy to see Arizona win tonight because that gives them a bit of an opening to get above that playoff line and maybe push the Islanders down. 7 Eastern, 4 Pacific start between the Florida Panthers and the New Jersey Devils. So I'm wearing Devils gear. First of 3 meetings, they'll meet again December 21st and March 18th. I've kind of given up on Florida turning it around. They're 14-13-4, and their last 10 games are 4-5-1. Away from home, they're 6-9-1. So it's all levels of disaster at this point for Florida. They're 3 points back of the Islanders for that number 2 wildcard spot. They're 2 points clear of the surging Buffalo Sabres. So we'll see how it goes. But New Jersey's 21-7-2. Their last 10 games are 5-3-2. At home, they're 10-6-1. That's not what I would expect from the New Jersey Devils. They're better on the road. They're 4 points ahead of Carolina and Pittsburgh. So if you're a Penguins fan, you're a Canes fan, you're cheering for Florida tomorrow. So we'll see how it goes. 9 Eastern, 6 o'clock Pacific start between the Buffalo Sabres and the Arizona Coyotes. November 8th, Arizona goes to Buffalo and wins 4-1. What's interesting is Arizona just swept the season series tonight against the Islanders. That's a first. They're going to be trying to sweep a season series tomorrow against the Buffalo Sabres. So not bad for a team that's supposed to be in the midst of a rebuild and trying to get Bedard. For Buffalo, they're 14-14-2 over their last 10. They're 5-3-2. Away from home, they're 7-6. They're 5 points back of the number 2 wildcard spot held by the Islanders. They're tied with Montreal, where they are in the standings right now. On the Arizona side, they're 10-14-2. They're now 3-5-2 in their last 10. At home, they're 4-2-1. They're playing well at home. They're 8 points back of Colorado and Calgary, who have that number 2 wildcard spot. They're 5 points ahead of Anaheim. So they as well are a team that's closer to the bottom of the conference than they are to the playoffs, but that was to be expected. And again, everybody laughed at Mullet Arena, but it's working for them. They've won 4 out of 7 at home. Buffalo had better bring their A game tomorrow. Even though, Arizona on a back-to-back, it should be favored for Buffalo, but we'll see. 9 o'clock Eastern, 6 o'clock Pacific start between Nashville and the Colorado Avalanche. 2 teams that have been going in the wrong direction lately. The first meeting was November 10th. A more healthy Colorado team beat them 5-3 that night. They'll be less healthy this time around. The third and fourth meetings will be December 23rd as well as April the 14th. For Nashville, they're 12-12-4. Last 10 games, they're 4-4-2. Away from home, they're 5-7-2. They're 4 points back of Colorado and Calgary for that final wildcard spot. And they're 3 points ahead of the San Jose Sharks. So they're not where they want to be right now. On Colorado's side, they're 15-11-2. Last 10 games, they're 4-5-1. At home, they're 6-5-2. They're 4 points back of Minnesota for third place in the division. They're 1 point now ahead of St. Louis. St. Louis threatening to jump into a playoff spot at the expense of Colorado. And I'm sure there are Blues fans that would be quite sad to see St. Louis get into a playoff spot and Colorado drop out, wouldn't they? Liars. So, yeah, we'll see how things go for Colorado. Of course, for Nashville, they want to win this game and do it in regulation so they can be within 2 points of that number 2 wildcard spot. 10 Eastern, 7 Pacific start between the Islanders and the Vegas Golden Knights. This is the first of 2 meetings. They'll meet again in New York on January the 28th. For New York, they're 17-13-1. Last 10 games, they're 4-5-1. Away from home, they're 8-7-1. Tough loss for them tonight. They're 1 point ahead of the Washington Capitals for that, with that second wildcard spot, and they're 2 points back of the New York Rangers. So for the Islanders, they should finish above the playoff line, but nothing is set in stone. On the Vegas side, they're 22-9-1. Last 10 games, they're 6-4. At home, they're 8-7. They're 8 points ahead of LA for that top spot in the division. That's a really pretty wide berth, and that is as close to running away with the division as anybody is right now. There aren't very many teams in the Pacific with a really strong record. Which brings me to the other 10 o'clock Eastern, 7 o'clock Pacific start. Vancouver at home against Winnipeg. Against all odds, Vancouver's still in the hunt. So this is the first of 3 meetings. They'll meet again December 29th and January 8th. For the Jets, 19-9-1. They traditionally have had a good record against Vancouver. Had a little bit of a struggle against them last year. We'll see how it goes this year. Last 10 games, they're 7-3. Away from home, they're 8-4-1. They are 3 points ahead of Minnesota in that division, but of course, they're a couple points back of Dallas. They want to get back into first. For Vancouver, they're 13-13-3. They're 7-3 in their last 10 as well. At home, they're 5-7-1. That has to be fixed. They do not play very well at home. They play better on the road. That's got to change. Not the road play. They have to get their game at home in order. They're 3 points back of Colorado and Calgary. So they're only 3 points out of the playoffs, and they're 1 point ahead of Nashville. And of course, if you pay attention to press and just general fan interest, you would think the Canucks are about 20 points out of the playoffs right now. But they're not. They're only a few points out. And honestly, it's a wide open conference. Why not? So then at 10:30 Eastern, 7:30 Pacific, you have the San Jose Sharks in LA. I do expect this to go to a shootout. It's a 7:30 start. It's 2 California teams. But LA won this matchup on November 25th, 5-2. I remember being happy that that game was done at the right time. The third and final meeting will be January the 11th. Remembering that San Jose and Anaheim are done with each other for a while. And so the California 7:30 starts with California teams against each other, not as prominent after tomorrow as it was before. San Jose's 10-16-5. Their last 10, they're 3-5-2. Away from home, they're 7-8. So it's just mediocre all over. But they're only 7 points out of a playoff spot, 7 points behind Colorado and Calgary, and they're 1 point ahead of the Arizona Coyotes. So again, we'll see how it all goes, right? For the LA Kings, they're 16-12-5. They win that game in a shootout against Boston, but there's been so many frustrating setbacks as well. I kind of like San Jose here because it would make sense for LA to go to Boston and win, come home, and lose to San Jose. That would be a very Kings thing for this year. Last 10 games, they're 4-3-3, and at home, they're 7-5-2. And due to the general mediocrity of the Pacific, they're 2 points ahead of Seattle. So we'll see how things go tomorrow. Let me know your picks in the comment section below as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video, and I thought, it is late enough in the season now. We're over 30 games in for most teams to start talking about who's in what position and how far teams are out of the playoffs or how far teams are up. So let me know your thoughts. Hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.